I'm Prashant Ziskind, and I'd like to invite you to join me in a conversation with Douglas Harding. Douglas was a former lecturer at Cambridge University in Comparative Religions, and he's also an author of numerous books, including The Little Book of Life and Death, On Having No Head, Head Off Stress, and is currently writing a book which is entitled The Trial. And Douglas is on a worldwide tour, and a lecture tour, and he's stopped by in Nelson once again. I'm happy to report, to speak with us, and to lead us in, actually he's already done it. He's led the workshop that he has come to Nelson to do, and I'm thrilled that he's here. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Douglas Harding. Thank you, Douglas, for coming and joining with us today.
Well, it's a delight for me in this superb land and a superb environment.
This is not your first time here. I think
it's the third, isn't it?
Third time.
I think, yes.
I remember you came 2 years ago.
It gets better and better.
Oh, wonderful. For us, too. I enjoyed attending your workshop 2 years ago as well. So where is your tour taking you this time?
Well, it's taking me from here to California and various places in California.
Is this your first stop on your tour this time?
No, I've been doing workshops with a friend called Judy in Montreal, a little thing in Toronto, kind of stopover thing there. And Nelson is a favorite place, and special friends here. They're a delight to come here. And from here, as I say, to California this time, although quite often I've been to other parts of the States, many parts of the States really. I just go where I'm asked to go, and that varies, you know.
Well, we always ask you to come here, and are very pleased that you're with us again.
Well, yes, I hope you continue a little while anyway to do that.
So you've just finished your workshop this weekend, and I'm rather curious from your perspective, what is the difference now? There's been 2 years that have passed since the last time you were in Nelson. Your work has obviously changed and grown during that period of time. What are the differences and changes that you notice in your own work?
That's a terribly difficult one, Prashant. First of all, my memory of, I've been working in quite a number of places like Australia, New Zealand, and Italy, and France, and so on. And one really perhaps doesn't remember details of each workshop, but I know that I enjoyed my time here last time. This time I've enjoyed it more. I don't know whether other people have. Of course, that's another question. I mean, whether one enjoys the workshop, that is one question. Whether other people do, that is concealed from me.
Well, for speaking for one person who's been to both your workshops, I've enjoyed both of them immensely and been really glad that I was at them.
I thought the quality of attention, the patience in doing little experiments, the sincerity of people, both on the Friday night and on the next day, the workshop. I thought that the people here were serious, but in this inquiry, you know, into whatever it is, what is it, who we really are, and perhaps for its size, Nelson is well stocked with that kind of person, that inquiring type of person. Yeah. For its size, I think it's doing very well. Don't you?
Yes, I do.
And so, and anyway, I have such dear friends here that, I mean, whether they get anything out of it, I don't know, but I certainly do. I really come here mainly just for personal refreshment.
Well, wonderful. I'm glad. I hope you continue to do that.
Yes.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your work so that people outside who may not be familiar with it have a chance to understand what you're talking about and what you've come to speak to us about. The central core of your work, I believe, is called perennial philosophy, or that seems to be at the core of some of your writings. And can you tell us a bit what this philosophy is, what this approach is, and how you came to hold it?
Yes, I suppose that one's own way is a variation on the theme of the perennial philosophy. And it's only one of many variations. It's an aspect of it, an approach to it. It's not the perennial philosophy. It is a contribution to an exercise in the perennial philosophy. What is it? Well, I think that's not hard to describe either. I think what the perennial philosophy observes is that at the heart and core of the great religions, let's say Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, I mean, that's the big 5 or 6. At the heart of the heart of the heart of each of those great religions is a proposition which is astounding, really. I mean, it is so wild and extraordinary. My hair should stand on end with wonder and delight at this possibility, you see. And what it says is this extraordinarily wild thing that you, who look so insignificant and small, and you know you come from being a little baby, and before that you an embryo and a fertilized ovum, you know, as big as a pinhead, and here you see you've grown up into something now standing on a pair of hind legs, and you say, well, the perennial philosophy tells you that who you really, really, really are, in spite of all this, you know, this very humble history from coming from very humble origins, in spite of all this, that who we really, 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 really are is the reality behind the world, the divine one who's responsible for everything, the awareness which is the heart of all creatures. And that is what one is. And when you look in the mirror, what you see is your appearance, and you see what other people are getting. You see a kind of flowing out from who you really, really are into some kind of temporary, aging, limited expression. But what is being expressed is your true nature, says the perennial philosophy, which is the heart of the world. It has many names, like God's kingdom of heaven, Holy Spirit, Atman, Brahman, Buddha nature, Allah, according to, and the Tao, according to which religion is talking about it. The proposition is that nearer to you than all else is the reality, the awareness, the being behind the whole world.
And you have, what I love about your workshops is that you take this concept that's central to many different religions and philosophies, and you bring practical experiments so that people can experience that kind of abstract concept that you were just talking about now. Can you talk a little bit about what you have brought to that perennial philosophy, your own special twist about having no head, about the experiences around having no head?
Well, first about the concept, as you call it, we bring it into experience. We don't leave it as conceptual ideas and thoughts. We aim in workshops to receive, to enjoy direct experience of who we really, really are, which, as I say, is this reality behind the world, which is not at all like what we see in the mirror. It's the exact opposite of the chap we see in the mirror. And so what we're doing is to rescue this thing from being a concept, which is abstract and colorless and an idea, a thought, you know, a word, etc. We're rescuing this reality from being a concept into being, dare I say it, a percept. That is to say, something we can actually see. And you see, this is what the perennial philosophy is really about. It's about, as I see it, it's about seers, not understanders. It's about seeing who we really, really are, not understanding. And if you press me extremely hard, I don't understand a word of it, but I see it with great clearness, as we all do. When we dare to look, we see. And you know, there are plenty of texts like this. The pure in heart shall see God. Isn't the pure in heart shall understand God, or get God taped, or have a nice, beautiful concept of God? Oh, quite the contrary. It's all utterly beyond thought, mysterious. And you know, as I say, our hair should stand on end with wonder at this. So it's not a concept, it's a percept. And we, in our workshops, seek to bring the whole thing down to direct experience, partly because that, well, mainly because that is the only way to really get hold of it, is to be it, and directly experience it with great vividness. And indeed, it is said that only God can be perfectly seen because only God is perfectly simple. And you can't see other things very clearly, but they're so darn complex. You see, I look at your top there, you know, blouse there, if that's a name for it. I mean, it would take me ages to investigate every fold and every shade of colour there. And I've only got the front view. What about the back? Well, all the little molecules, and what about all those fibres? I don't see that, but I see this with great clarity, which is the space for you and that blouse, you see. So I don't see this, really, I glimpse this, but this is for vision. And so in the workshop we aim to get direct experience of who we are, partly because, I'd say, because it's enterprising, it's fun, I mean, if who we really, really are doesn't interest us, come on, what's left?
Okay, so what we normally see, I mean, when I think of myself, I essentially envision my body, I guess. This is me from top to bottom. This is who I am. How do you get people to see beyond the obvious who I am to the God who I am?
Well, we'll give you some insight. We'll do some little experiments together. So I think we can probably, instead of just talking about it, we can give a few indications of how it's done. But before that, you've raised questions which need addressing. You mentioned my work as, we read a book called On Having No Head, which sounds dotty, doesn't it? It sounds absolutely crazy. And of course it is dotty and it's absurd. Of course I've got a head. The only thing is, where do I keep the darn thing? And you see, the book really should have been, it was too long a title, but the book should have really been called On Having No Head Here, or alternatively, On Having Millions and Millions of Heads. And I'll explain that, because I can't find one here, but it's in the mirror. You've got it now. I guess you're the one that is seized of, acquainted with, inspecting that Douglas beard at this time. It's very bad luck, but you're the bearded lady. Well, you're not the bearded lady. You have Douglas's face now, don't you? I mean, your sight. You're experiencing the thing. It may be bad luck, but it's you know. And here am I at the winning end of this, because I've got my about 50 years taken off me, and I have your face. You see. And I mean, just enjoying your appearance. And the whole thing is about, not the whole thing, one way of getting this across in workshops is we look at one another. Actually, we don't look at one another only in the open like this under these lights. We actually do so in a tube. And the reason we do so in a tube is because it's very easy to see it in a tube, because you never went in a tube and saw a face before. Therefore, you're in terrible danger of seeing what you see instead of what people told you to see, you see. It's terribly hard to see what you see. But when you go in this tube, you see what you see, and there's face at that end, space at this end. And imagine we're in a tube now, well, it's Douglas's face here and your space for that to see.
What do you mean a space at one end? I know if we're in a tube, I'm going to see your face. What do you mean a space at one end?
Well, you know what space is. I mean, I'm saying that there's a face here and a space where you are. And you are making room there for Douglas's face here. No, you're not making room. You see that you've got nothing to keep Douglas's face out with. You're stuck with the darn thing, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess
You're
I
stuck
am.
with
I'm
the darn
looking
thing.
at it, so
it's
that's
your
what I
problem
see.
at the moment, and your face is my privilege. But my face is your problem. Or, you know, there we are. And of course, this does indicate the practicality of this, because the whole world, it's really a sad truth and tragic comic, the whole world runs on something called confrontation. Face there, face here, confrontation. And that is a recipe for trouble. I mean, confrontation. Saddam means confrontation. I say we're all a lot of Saddams, you see. Confrontation. And in every language that I know, the story is face to face, symmetry. Meatball to meatball, aged meatball to fresh meatball, served up on this kind of plate here. Well, I mean, it's not like that in my experience now. I'm just empty for you. And I guess you would admit I mean, don't think about it, just look. Have you anything where you are to keep Douglas out with? You're stuck with him, aren't you? Well, I mean, when I say Douglas, I mean all this herbage and stuff. You're stuck with him.
Well, yeah, I guess so, because I just see you.
I don't say it's very nice. But the setup is nice. It means... It means, Prashant, we're busted wide open for one another. And that is a recipe for living. I mean, to live from that is to give love, as I say, till it becomes tiresome almost. As I say, let's give love a chance by telling the truth. And I say that we are built open. We're built busted wide open for one another. And if we recognize that, we give love in our lives a chance. And if we deny this, we make love a rather very difficult enterprise.
This is a very fascinating concept, and it's...
I must put in a slight word of protest here about the word concept.
Yeah,
it is not a concept for me, it's a percept.
Okay,
a concept is something you understand. It's a word, an idea. This is not something... I mean, this glass of water is not a concept, it's a percept. And this is a percept. I perceive the absence here, into which this glass of water is going to pour something. I perceive this glass here, and with the same kind of perception, I see there's nothing here. I don't conceive a thing, I don't understand it, I don't hear it, I don't smell it. I see there's nothing here, not a speck of stuff in your way, busted wide open for you.
So what's the significance of having nothing here? What does it allow us?
Well, I mean, first of all, the significance is that you happen to be made like that. The first question is I think the first question is just tell the truth about it. Afterwards, you can say, why is it, you know, who made it like this and what does it mean? But I mean, the first thing is to be sure it's true. And this is the setup. This is the way it is. And you have to say yes to it. You may not like it very much, especially if someone in front of you is not... the view isn't very nice. I mean, you may not like it, but you're stuck with the thing. And you see, come on, we've all happened. We've all occurred in the world, and we get a chance, while we're in the world, to have a look at what it's like being ourselves. And to chicken out on that, say, I'm going to live and die, I'm not going to bother to see who's doing that, is feeble. I mean, it just is unworthy of us, isn't it? It really is pathetic. Come on, you've happened, have a good look at it. And my experience is, if we tell the truth, very rare thing, simple truth about who we are in our own experience, not believing a thing we're told, not reading books about it, not asking teachers about it, but really daring to be ourselves, we find that our life, a real blessing, pours into our life. And that's, it's not for believing that, for testing. And even, I would say for myself, that even if it were sad and miserable thing to see who I am, it's just, it's just beneath our dignity as a human. We have a certain, what shall I say, opportunity and a duty to wake as far as we are able from our coma, our socially induced coma. That's what it is.
One of the things that I found very interesting about the workshop after the experiments that you had us do,
yes,
was sitting here and feeling this part of myself as being gone, and just feeling the space that exists on the end of my neck. So
on the end of your...
On the end of my neck, I guess, although I can't even really see my neck.
From here
so
up.
I guess
well, you look at your
you know,
thing,
I
you
guess
come
I
up
can
to here.
manage to about
That's
here,
right.
and then I go blank.
I mean, come on, you go blank. Well, you go blank this way, but this way you've got...
I see everything.
Well, you've got British Columbia. I mean, come on. I mean, here you stop being Prashant, and you are British. From here, you're up from here, you're British Columbia. And not only British Columbia, the wide sky and
I've
the stars.
lost my head and I've gained the world.
The stars, I mean, come on, galaxies, stars, planets, sky. Come on, what more do we want? That's good trading. You lose a perishing. Now, the thing is, you see, this little guy here, I mean, first of all, he lives in a mirror. He doesn't, it's not here. And there he is, and he's dying, you see. I mean, that little guy I see in my mirror called Douglas is, you know, he'd been dying for 83 years, and his shelf life is very short now, giving out. Well, I'm going to be let off being him, you see. And he never was here, he was always there. And in the workshop, what we do, one of the things we do is say, well, you answer the objection, well, of course, that thing you see in the mirror, Douglas, that isn't really there, it's here. So we say, all right, shove it on here. And I can't, you see, it disappears. I bring my mirror up and it disappears, I can't do it. But if I hold my mirror up there, I can put my face on you very nicely. I mean, it doesn't do any good, it gives you a beard. But that's where it belongs, you see. My face belongs to everybody but me, and we commit larceny, theft of a very serious nature by stealing our faces from other people to whom they belong. And it's their property, and we bring it here. And this is kind of act of attempted suicide, because that one's dying. The one in my mirror is suffering from a terminal disease called death. Life, called life. And you see, well, I'm doing, putting it on here.
Immortality you're giving
This is
here?
a kind of suicide. No, the one here, the space here, and it really is space. It is empty of anything. When I look here, all we've got to do, turn our attention round and look at what we're looking out of, and then we see, at least I do, in a workshop, we ask people to do that and to turn around and point to where they're coming from. And I suggested if anybody's looking at us that they do look at what they're looking out of as well as what they're looking at, which is these two persons having a conversation. What are they looking out of? And when I say, when I look at what I'm looking out of here, I see that there's absolutely nothing here in this direction. It's totally empty, but it's totally full in that direction. See, it's space. I am space here for that there. And I notice also that things out there are all small, limited things, and all perishing. And here I find nothing to perish, and I find that this goes on and on forever and ever. This is endless, boundless. So it has no boundaries. The space here is bigger than the world. It's big enough to contain the view, however great the view. The wide is wider than the wide sky, and it is this way, clearer than the clear sky, the cloudless sky. And looking this way, it's full of the world, and for good measure, and this is the important one, it's awake. It says, I am. And I will never find consciousness anywhere but here. That's where it lives. And this one says, I am. But I've never been around and, you know, never found consciousness lurking anywhere in the world except here.
I hear that you have a wonderful story to tell. A little bird whispered in my ear about the story of the dragon.
But spare me that.
Spare you that? You're not into telling us today about
Well, have we addressed the questions you've raised? You see, you said on having no head. Well, of course I have course, I have a head. We'll come to the dragon. We'll mention the dragon later.
Okay, good. I'd like to hear what that is.
I promise. If we've got time,
okay.
we'll shove in the dragon.
We don't have too much time left.
Oh, well, we're getting on now.
We're getting on now. We've just got a few moments left. So.
Oh, is that all?
Yes, apparently. That's
really. Is that,
that's what I'm hearing from the
Good
the
Lord,
production
I thought we'd only been talking about a couple of minutes.
I know. It feels like it's been going very, very quickly.
So you still want the dragon thing?
Well, I don't know. It's up to you. Whatever you would like to finish in the last
very
few
quickly,
moments.
I can't tell you all about the dragon. He's a fascinating character. And it's based on a story called The Hymn of the Pearl, which I suppose it was anonymously composed around the year 200 AD, something like that. And it's about a king in the East who, I suppose, the king of the world. And they had in the palace there in the East a pearl of great price. The great treasure of the court there in the East was a pearl of great price. Unfortunately, somebody nicked it, you see. Somebody nicked the pearl of great price. It was very distressing, and the prince was detailed to go and fetch it. And so he traveled all the way from the East to look for the pearl, which had apparently found its way to Egypt. It was a long way. And on his way, he was, at the beginning, he was clothed with the heavens and crowned with the stars. He wore a robe, a blue robe of the firmament, you see, in the stars, great, great creature. But he arrived in Egypt looking for the pearl, and in order not to attract attention to himself, he dressed like the Egyptians do, you know, like this, you see. And he ate the kind of food which the Egyptians eat. And he drank their drink and, you know, hopefully was going to look for the pearl. But unfortunately, he got drugged, you see, and he kind of bought into the Egyptian way of life and forgot why he'd come, and he got drugged, and he became in all respects, all practical respects, an Egyptian. It's very sad story. But there was a messenger sent from the king in the East got wind of his failure to go and look for the pearl, so he sent a messenger, a kind of telegram, in the form of an eagle, who said, "You better get on with your pearl searching," you see. So he did, and he found that the pearl was located at the bottom of a very, very deep lake in Egypt, right at the very, very bottom. And of course the pearl is, may I explain and interpret, the pearl is that, see, who we really, really, really are, this clarity, this I amness, this being, this who we really, really, really are, this treasure that opens all the key that opens all the doors of the world. And it was at the bottom of the lake there. And unfortunately, well, he had to dive in and get the pearl right to the bottom, you see, right at the bottom of the lake. Unfortunately, it was guarded by a horrible serpent, dragon. And the dragon had all sorts of ways of keeping the prince from getting the pearl. In other words, we have a huge resistance. Our dragon is our resistance to who we really are. We fight it like anything. We all have our personal dragon who is making it difficult, impossible to find out who we are. And you see, one of the ploys of the dragon, just to give an example, he says, "Oh, you don't want that silly old pearl because it's so plain." It is, isn't it? When you look at it, it's so darn plain. Well, who wants things like that? I mean, it's no more interesting than the water is there, you see, resting in it. And so what he does is offer you a lovely tray of costume, Woolworth's costume jewellery, you see, all rubies and emeralds and amethysts and stuff. And he offers these, we say, these are the things you want. Now, those are peak experiences, right? Joy and peak experiences, having a wonderful time, you know, wonderful feeling. And of course, this is so ordinary, you see. But the treasure is ordinary and plain as where you are. And it's not a peak experience, because when you have a peak experience, you see, peaks aren't for sitting on, and then you're down, you have valley experience. You go up and down, peaks are very uncomfortable. But this is more like a valley experience, and it's at the bottom there. Well, what he did, just to...
Tell me how he found it.
I'll tell you how he found it. Well, he did, we haven't got time to go, he had many, many ploys of keeping you from your pearl. But the prince, actually in the story, what happened was that the prince was smart. He didn't take on the dragon. In other words, don't fight your resistance to seeing who you are. What you do is to bypass it. Leave it. Don't struggle here. Just allow the thing to happen when it is appropriate. Well, what the prince does, is wait till the dragon's had his tea, and he's kind of dozing off, you see, and he's getting a little bit he's kind of stupor, and he creeps past the dragon, and he gets the pearl, and the pearl is this. And he goes up, and of course the dragon then finds he's lost his pearl. He's furious. The dragon is lashing the water. He can't do a darn thing because the prince has got the dragon, and the pearl now charms the dragon. Well, it doesn't charm him into a nice thing, but it charms him it prevents him from doing him a mischief, you see. And anyway, the prince takes the pearl and goes back to his father's house. Well, this is a story of our life.
It's a wonderful story.
It's a story of our life. And we have this great resistance to this simple thing, seeing who we are. The pearl is the treasure. It is the kingdom of the United States. It's a great treasure. There's a story of a man who sold all he had for the pearl of great price.
It's a wonderful story, and if you ever decide not to do workshops anymore, I have to tell you to have a wonderful career as a storyteller, Douglas, because you're an enchanting tale teller.
Well, I didn't have much time to
I know. I wish we had twice as much time.
The dragon had at least 5, 6, or 7 employees, not only costumes.
We only got to get to one of them. But if you want to read about the other ploys and find out more about Douglas's work, his books are being carried here locally in Nelson at Oliver's bookstores, and you can ask for them. And I want to thank you so much for being with us. It's an absolute delight to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Gone very quickly.
Very quickly.
Mm-hmm.